While bullets flew at Gettysburg in the summer of 1863, another battle was being fought in silence 300 miles away, a battle no one talked about, because those who asked questions disappeared. Tonight, we open the long-buried case of Rosewood Manor, the grand estate built on secrets, lies, and the graves of 73 missing souls. If you think you know Southern history, think again. Subscribe, and let us take you into the darkness behind the white columns of Tennessee's most cursed plantation. Part 1. The Vanishing Workers. In the summer of 1863, while the Civil War tore the nation apart, a different kind of horror was happening far from the battlefields. Just 20 miles southeast of Nashville, Tennessee, something strange was going on at a cotton plantation called Rosewood Manor. It started with whispers. People in nearby towns noticed something odd. Workers who went to Rosewood for jobs never came back. First, it was a hired hand from Murfreesboro. Then a freedman from Columbia. Then whole families disappeared, one by one, all after accepting work at the Chamberlain estate. In just 18 months, 73 people vanished without a trace. These weren't slaves escaping or soldiers deserting. These were free workers, black and white, who had come to Rosewood to survive the chaos of war. They were promised fair wages, food, and shelter. But none of them ever returned home. The Army later sealed the investigation. The reports were locked away in Washington, hidden from the public for over 100 years. But now, the truth is finally coming out. At the heart of it all was Ezekiel Chamberlain, the proud owner of Rosewood Manor. Rosewood wasn't just any plantation. Built in 1834, it stood like a palace, 3 stories tall, with 6 white Corinthian columns out front and balconies that wrapped around the house. The land stretched over 2,000 acres of rich black soil, perfect for growing cotton. While other plantations struggled during the war, Rosewood thrived. In 1863, it produced more cotton than ever before, even though most plantations had lost their workers and faced constant raids. Everyone wondered, how was the Chamberlain family still doing so well? Ezekiel was 42 years old, tall, with cold gray eyes and silver hair that made him look older than he was. People called him a gentleman. But those who worked for him knew better. There was something in his voice, calm, but dangerous, like a man who could smile while planning terrible things. Instead of fleeing when Union forces entered Nashville in 1862, Ezekiel stayed. He acted like he supported no one. In secret, he sold cotton to both sides, first to the Confederates at high prices, then to the Union when they captured the shipments. He was paid twice for the same goods. But cotton wasn't his real business. That was something darker. His wife, Margaret, came from a powerful Virginia tobacco family. She was 38, strict, and cold. She ran the household like a general. Every candle, every sack of flour, every pound of meat, all recorded in neat handwriting in her heavy account books. But there were things she didn't write down, things she and Ezekiel discussed at night, behind closed doors. Their twin sons, Daniel and Samuel, were both 21. Daniel, the elder, was thin and nervous, always pushing his glasses up his nose. He had studied chemistry before the war. Samuel was bigger, broad-shouldered, with hands too large for his frame. He was quiet, but his temper was dangerous. Workers feared him more than anyone. By 1862, chaos ruled Tennessee. Union and Confederate forces fought for control. Most plantations shut down. Slaves escaped. White laborers left for the cities. But somehow, Rosewood kept running, its cotton fields full of workers who came and went. In silence. No one could recognize them. They wore wide hats and scarves that hid their faces. They didn't talk. They didn't wave. They just worked from sunrise to sunset, then disappeared into the night. Then came President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, issued in September 1862. Ezekiel knew slavery was ending. He couldn't rely on slaves anymore. So he came up with a plan, one more trick to keep his empire going. He posted notices in town, offering $2 a day, good pay for the time, plus food and a room. The ads were aimed at freed slaves, poor farmers, war widows, anyone desperate enough to take the offer. Many answered the call. They came to Rosewood looking for honest work. They never left. After they signed the contracts, everything changed. Some were told they had to stay on the land, for safety, Ezekiel claimed. Others were sent to live in small cabins behind the main house, hidden from view. They weren't allowed visitors. They weren't allowed letters. Some families were told their loved ones had left for another job, or had been caught stealing and run off. But the truth was much worse. Years later, a federal investigator found something hidden deep in the Rosewood cellar, a room lined with copper tubs, strong acids, and iron tools. The walls were covered in dark stains. The air smelled like metal and rot. It wasn't a laundry room. It was a place for making people disappear. Belongings from the missing were found carefully packed in crates: watches, hair combs, shoes, even baby clothes. Nothing was random. Everything was labeled, like items in a store. There were no graves, no bones, no evidence, just silence. And yet, every harvest season, Rosewood grew richer. The neighbors kept quiet. They were scared, or maybe they were paid to look the other way. A few tried asking questions. They were the next to vanish. Now, over 150 years later, the shadows of Rosewood are rising again. And the truth, Ezekiel Chamberlain's truth, is more horrifying than any war. To be continued in Part 2, The House Behind the Columns. If you'd like me to continue with Part 2, just say the word. Title: Rosewood Manor, Part 2, The Disappearing Names. YouTube hook. Spoken before the story. What if you trusted someone with your life, and they used that trust to erase you from the world? In today's chapter of Rosewood Manor, we uncover what really happened to the workers who signed up for honest labor, and vanished. Sealed records, perfect lies, and a river that keeps too many secrets. If you're new here, subscribe now. This is the kind of dark history they never taught in school. Part 2. The Disappearing Names. The workers who came to Rosewood Manor in the winter of 1862 thought they were getting a fair deal: $2 a day, free room and board, and a job that might help them survive the chaos of war. But there was a condition. They had to stay for 2 years, and during that time, their wages would be held in trust. At first, it sounded reasonable, a way to keep workers loyal and the plantation running smoothly. But what seemed like smart business quickly turned into something far darker. The first sign of trouble came in November 1862, when a woman named Martha Henley showed up at the Murfreesboro courthouse. Martha was a widow, a quiet woman with tired eyes, clutching an old photograph of her brother Thomas. Thomas had been a blacksmith before Union troops seized his shop. Desperate, he had accepted a job at Rosewood 6 weeks earlier. He had promised to write as soon as he got paid. But no letters ever came. Martha went to the plantation herself. There, she met Daniel Chamberlain, one of the twin sons. Daniel told her that Thomas had broken his contract, been caught drinking, and had been fired without pay. But Martha knew better. "Thomas ain't touched a drop since our papa died of drink," she whispered to Sheriff Coleman Briggs, her voice shaking. He swore on the old man's grave he never would again. Sheriff Briggs had known the Chamberlain family for over 20 years. Ezekiel, Margaret, the boys, they were respected. But Thomas Henley had also been known in town. He was a quiet man, always reliable, never one to cause trouble. Something felt off. Briggs rode to Rosewood that very afternoon. Ezekiel Chamberlain was already waiting for him, standing on the mansion steps in a black suit and holding a leather-bound ledger. It was as if he had known exactly when the sheriff would arrive. "I anticipated your visit," Ezekiel said smoothly. His Virginia accent was polished and practiced. "It's a regrettable matter. Henley turned out to be a thief and a drunk. We have signed statements from 3 witnesses." Ezekiel handed over the documents. The statements were clean. The names of the witnesses were familiar: Samuel Chamberlain, the family's brutal overseer; Josiah Creek, the longtime head of labor; and Moses Washington, a field hand. They all said the same thing: that Thomas had been seen drinking and stealing tools from the shop. The paperwork looked real, the signatures matched, the details were believable, but something still felt wrong. Ezekiel was too prepared, too smooth. His eyes didn't blink as he watched the sheriff read the statements. And there was another thing, a sharp chemical smell drifting from the buildings behind the manor. It was strong, like acid. The kind of smell you only noticed around the town's tannery, but heavier. Sharper. Wrong. I hope you understand, Ezekiel added, snapping the ledger closed. I won't tolerate theft. Not in wartime. Briggs nodded. He had no proof. Only a bad feeling. He rode away with the statements in his coat, but the image of Ezekiel's unblinking eyes haunted him. 3 days later, Martha Henley's body was found floating in Stones River. Her horse was grazing nearby. There were no wounds, no signs of struggle. The coroner ruled it an accident. The river was fast and dangerous after recent rains. But Martha's handbag was missing, along with the photograph of her brother. The winter passed quietly, but more names began to vanish. In December, James Patterson, a carpenter from Shelbyville, took a job at Rosewood. His wife Sarah received one letter in January, written in James's careful handwriting, saying he was well and would come home after his contract ended. Then, nothing. When Sarah visited Rosewood in March, the Chamberlains told her James had run off in the night. Left his tools, his bag, everything. Just gone. Eleanor Walsh, a young Irish woman from Nashville, had left her boarding house with dreams of a better life. She said the Chamberlains treated their workers like family. She never returned. Her landlady said she only took one small bag. The rest of her things stayed behind, gathering dust in a locked trunk. But the worst case came in February, when the Freeman family disappeared. Isaac Freeman, his wife Ruth, and their 2 sons, Jacob and Benjamin, had heard about Rosewood's generous pay. Isaac was a cotton gin mechanic, a skill in high demand. They sold their little farm, packed their belongings into one wagon, and went to start fresh at Rosewood Manor. They were never seen again. Each time Sheriff Briggs looked into a disappearance, the story was the same. Ezekiel had the paperwork ready. Theft, violence, drunkenness, abandonment. The witnesses always agreed. And yet, not one person could be found. Not one letter, not one body, not even a grave. It was like they had been erased. But inside Rosewood, one man was starting to doubt it all. Josiah Creek, the head overseer, had worked at Rosewood since 1834, longer than any other man alive. He was massive, with arms like tree trunks and a voice like thunder. He had done terrible things in the past, during the days of slavery. But what was happening now felt worse. The punishments were secret, the new workers never talked. And Creek had seen barrels and crates going into the basement that had nothing to do with cotton. He didn't trust the Chamberlain twins. He especially didn't trust Daniel, with his chemical knowledge and quiet smirk. He had caught the boy mixing something in the old smokehouse once, a liquid that hissed when it hit the floor and melted the wood. Something was deeply wrong at Rosewood. And the ground, Creek feared, was soaked with lies. To be continued in Part 3, The Cellar Beneath the House. If you're ready for the next part, let me know, I'll continue the story. Rosewood Manor, Part 3, The Hidden Graveyard. What Josiah Creek discovered at Rosewood Manor in the spring of 1863 was far more terrifying than anything he'd seen in his 40 years on the land. He had punished people before. He had followed orders. But this was something evil. It began in March. Creek noticed the plantation's food stores weren't going down like they should. According to Daniel Chamberlain's records, 67 workers were on the payroll. But when Creek counted the people in the fields himself, he saw only 39. Where were the rest? At first, Creek thought maybe some had left without telling anyone. But when he asked around, no one remembered them leaving. Instead, the missing workers were the same ones who had been asking questions, just like Thomas Henley, the blacksmith who disappeared months earlier. Then, strange things started happening at night. Around 2 or 3 a.m., Creek saw Daniel and Samuel Chamberlain walking around the workers' cabins with lanterns. Two pale, thin men always walked with them, men Creek didn't recognize. They didn't act like farmhands. Their hands were clean, their backs straight. They looked like doctors. The strangers always carried leather bags, bags that looked like they held tools, maybe even surgical instruments. And every time they visited a cabin, that worker was gone by morning. Their belongings, gone too. Beds made, clothes packed up. As if they never existed. One April night, Creek couldn't take it anymore. He followed them. He watched as they entered the cabin of Benjamin Carver, a free black man from Memphis who had only been there 3 weeks. Carver had been asking too many questions about the disappearing workers. 20 minutes later, the Chamberlain brothers came out, carrying a large canvas sack between them. Even in the moonlight, Creek could see dark stains on it. The way the sack moved told him something was inside, something heavy. Creek followed them through the dark plantation. They passed the family cemetery, the one with the marble gravestones, and kept going into the woods. There, hidden among the trees, Creek saw a torchlight. The brothers were joined by their father, Ezekiel, and the two pale strangers. Together, the group lowered the sack into a hole in the ground. One of the strangers opened a bottle and poured a clear liquid inside. A strong chemical smell filled the air, sharp and burning, like the tannery back in town. Ezekiel stood over the grave and whispered, 73 souls to build an empire. Each one a brick in our dynasty. The grave was filled, covered with leaves and brush. When the others left, Creek stayed hidden. He followed the brothers and the strangers again, this time to a large barn. Creek had always thought it was for storing tools and farming equipment. But when he peeked through a crack in the boards, he saw something horrifying. Inside, the barn had been turned into a factory for destroying bodies. Wooden vats stood along the wall, filled with quicklime, the same chemical that was poured into the grave. It dissolved bodies fast. Only valuables were left behind. Tables were covered with belongings, tools, jewelry, clothing. Creek saw Thomas Henley's leather tool belt, Eleanor Walsh's silver locket, the Freeman family's wedding rings. In one corner, a furnace glowed. It was used to melt gold and silver into plain bars. No names, no questions. Near the door, Creek found a desk with ledger books. He opened one. Each page listed a victim. Their name, date they arrived, date they were killed, what they owned, how much it was worth. Thomas Henley, November 15, 1862 tools, silver watch -$47. James Patterson, December 22, 1862 carpenter tools, gold ring -$89. Eleanor Walsh, January 18, 1863 sewing kit, silver locket -$23. Freeman family, February 8, 1863 wagon, household goods -$156. Page after page. 73 people, over $4,000 in stolen goods. This wasn't just about money. This was a system, a trap. Creek learned the two pale strangers were the Polk brothers, Cornelius and Edgar. They were Confederate doctors who disappeared after the Battle of Shiloh. Cornelius had been a real doctor. Edgar had studied chemicals at a university in Kentucky. They killed quietly, with chloroform or morphine. No blood, no signs of violence. The Chamberlains advertised across Tennessee and Kentucky. They looked for people who were alone, widows, immigrants, freed slaves, and workers who'd lost everything in the war. They promised good jobs and fair wages. When their victims arrived, they were watched, judged, and eventually chosen. Boarding house owners and labor agents helped the Chamberlains. They earned a little money for every worker they sent, unknowingly, to their deaths. As Creek looked around that horrible barn, he realized the murders had started in 1861, 2 years ago. The family had improved their methods over time. No mistakes, no loose ends. That's when Creek stepped backward. His boot caught on a board. Crack, silence inside the barn. Then footsteps. Who's out there? Daniel's voice cut through the night. Samuel, check the perimeter, he shouted. Take the dogs. No one gets out. Creek turned and ran. The dogs barked behind him. Men shouted. Creek's heart pounded in his chest. He ran into the woods he knew better than anyone else. He had worked this land for decades. He knew the paths, the hiding places, but it wouldn't be enough. They were coming for him. As he ran, Creek tripped over a fallen log and tumbled down into a shallow ravine. His leg snapped with a sharp crack. Pain shot through him. He couldn't move. Above, he heard the hounds getting closer. And then he heard the voices. "He can't be far," Samuel said. "We'll make it look like an accident," said Edgar Polk. "What if he already told someone?" asked the other brother. "Then we'll deal with it," Ezekiel said calmly. "But I doubt it. Creek is simple, quiet. Even if he disappears, no one will ask questions." Creek held his breath, lying in the mud, his leg twisted, pain rushing through him. They were planning his death like it was just another task on a list. Like he was nothing. And just like that, victim number 74 had a name, Josiah Creek. To be continued in part 4. If this story chilled your bones, like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales. What's really going on in the woods behind Rosewood Manor? Find out in the next chapter of this true Southern nightmare. Would you like me to continue with part 4 next? Rosewood Manor. Part 4. The Locked Room. 1863, Tennessee 1000 words, simple. English. Clara stood in the hallway, her candle flickering as cold air swept past her face. She had just seen a shadow move behind a closed door, the room at the very end of the corridor. No one had opened that room since her father died. It had always been locked. Her heart beat fast. The key. She remembered seeing a small brass key inside her father's desk drawer. That drawer had been locked too, but yesterday she found it slightly open. Something, or someone, wanted her to find it. Clara ran back to the study, lit only by moonlight pouring through the window. She pulled open the drawer. There it was, the brass key, still cold to the touch. She held it tightly and made her way back to the hallway. The house was silent, but something felt heavy in the air, like the walls were watching her. Her feet creaked on the wooden floor. As she reached the door, her hand trembled. She placed the key into the lock. It clicked. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a dark room full of dust and forgotten things. A strong smell of old fabric and ashes hit her nose. She stepped inside. Moonlight spilled through the stained glass window. In the corner sat a rocking chair. It moved. Clara froze. The chair creaked slowly back and forth, though no one was there. Then she saw the painting. A large portrait hung on the wall. It was of a woman with pale skin and hollow eyes. Her dress was dark green, and her hair was pinned up like an old Southern lady. But there was something wrong. Her eyes looked real. Like they were following Clara. Clara turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind her. She ran to it, pulled, twisted the knob, it wouldn't budge. "Who's there?" she cried. Silence. She turned back to the room. A soft hum filled the air, like a lullaby sung by a voice deep underwater. The sound grew louder. The painting began to move. Not just the frame, the woman inside shifted. Her eyes blinked. Clara gasped and stumbled backward. The rocking chair now rocked faster. Then it stopped. The woman in the painting raised a hand slowly and pointed toward the fireplace. Clara hesitated. Then she walked toward it. Inside the fireplace lay ash, and something sticking out, an old, half-burned diary. She picked it up, brushing off the soot. The cover was cracked leather, with the name, Genevieve Ashcroft, written on the front. Ashcroft. Her great-grandmother's name. She flipped it open. The handwriting was elegant, but hard to read in the dim light. She read aloud. "Greater than, they told me not to enter the garden after dark. But I did. I heard the singing. I followed the voice to the lake, and I saw her face in the water, mine, but twisted. She whispered something I cannot forget. Your blood remembers." Clara shivered. The humming grew louder. Suddenly, something scratched against the window. She turned. A pale hand was pressed against the glass from the outside. Then it was gone. The door behind her flew open on its own. She didn't wait. Clara grabbed the diary and ran. Dash dash dash. Back in her room, Clara lit more candles. She sat on the floor, opening the diary again. The next page read, "Greater than, I buried the mirror in the garden to keep her from coming through. But she still finds ways. Mother says she's part of our bloodline, a curse from the old country. I don't believe in curses. But I believe in fear." Clara now understood. This was no ghost story. This was part of her family. This was real. Suddenly, the bedroom mirror cracked. Just a thin line at first. Then another. Then it shattered completely. Clara screamed. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. She ran to the door and opened it. But no one was there. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck midnight. The sound echoed like a warning. Clara ran to the old garden, barefoot on the cold floor, diary in hand. The moon lit her path. She passed the empty fountain and walked toward the rose bushes. The ground was soft. She knelt and dug with her hands. Dirt filled her fingernails. Then she hit something hard. A box. She pulled it out. Inside was an old, round mirror. Its frame was silver, with strange symbols carved along the edges. The glass was black, no reflection at all. Suddenly, the air turned icy. Fog crept along the ground. Then she saw her reflection. Only it wasn't her. It was the woman in the painting. Genevieve Ashcroft. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Then a whisper filled Clara's ears, though no one was near. "You've opened the door. Now you must walk through." The mirror shook in her hands. Clara dropped it. It didn't break. Instead, it began to hum. Just like the lullaby. She turned to run, but the ground beneath her feet shifted. She sank. Her scream echoed across the garden. Then silence. The mirror lay still in the dirt. The wind blew softly through the roses. And from the dark trees beyond the garden, someone watched. Dash dash dash. End of part 4. Next. Part 5, The Mirror's Secret. Shall I continue with part 5? Rosewood Manor. Part 5. The Mirror's Secret. 1863, Tennessee 1000 words, simple English. Dash dash dash. The next morning, sunlight poured over Rosewood Manor. Birds chirped outside, but inside the house, everything was still. No one knew Clara was gone. Sarah, the housemaid, noticed her bed had not been slept in. The blankets were folded neatly, and her boots were missing. She told Mrs. Whitmore, the headmistress of the estate. Mrs. Whitmore frowned but said nothing. She simply walked to the study and locked the door behind her. Clara's cousin Elijah, who had returned from town that morning, found the garden gate open. That was strange. It was always shut. As he stepped into the garden, he saw fresh dirt near the roses and something shiny lying in the soil. The mirror. He bent down and picked it up. The surface was dark, almost like oil, and no reflection showed. He felt cold as soon as his fingers touched it. "Elijah," he turned. Sarah stood by the gate. "Where is Clara?" she asked. Elijah looked down at the strange mirror. "I was about to ask the same thing." Dash dash dash. Deep beneath the earth, in a place that was not quite real and not quite dream, Clara opened her eyes. She was lying on cold stone. Around her were walls made of fog and shadows. There was no ceiling, only a dark sky full of moving clouds. She stood up, the diary still clutched in her hand. A soft voice echoed around her. "You carry her blood. You carry her burden." "Who's there?" Clara asked. A tall figure appeared from the mist. A woman in an old green dress. Her skin was pale, her eyes deep pools of sorrow. "You are not her," Clara whispered. "You're not Genevieve. You're something else." The woman smiled. "Genevieve called me in fear. She wanted to be powerful. She gave me her reflection." Clara stepped back. "You're the thing in the mirror." "Yes," said the woman. "But I am also the truth no one tells. The curse hidden in beauty. The promise buried in your family's soil." Clara clutched the diary tighter. "What do you want from me?" "I want what all forgotten things want, to be remembered. To be released." Suddenly, shadows rushed toward Clara, wrapping around her like vines. She tried to run, but the ground pulled her feet down. The diary fell. The woman moved closer. You have already opened the way. Now, give me your name. No, Clara shouted. The shadows stopped. For a moment, silence. Then, a faint voice called through the air. Elijah. The name echoed. The woman hissed. Someone calls you back, but he does not know the price. Back in the real world, Elijah held the mirror in his hands. He saw something in it. A flicker. A face. Clara's face. Clara, he whispered. The image faded. He ran back to the house, the mirror under his arm. He burst into the study, where Mrs. Whitmore was reading an old book with yellow pages. She looked up sharply. Where did you get that? In the garden. Clara's missing. I saw her in the mirror. Mrs. Whitmore stood and took the mirror. She turned pale. This should have been buried forever, she said. What is it? Elijah asked. She pointed to the book. It was filled with drawings of mirrors, circles, and women with hollow eyes. There's a secret in the Ashcroft bloodline. Long ago, one of our ancestors made a deal with something beyond this world. A creature trapped in a mirror, something old, something hungry. Every few generations, it tries to escape. And Clara, she's the key, said Mrs. Whitmore. She's the one it needs. Genevieve tried to stop it, but it only made the mirror stronger. Elijah's jaw clenched. How do we bring Clara back? Mrs. Whitmore took a deep breath. We must go to the garden. At midnight. And we must use the mirror, to walk into the other side. That night, the garden was silent. The moon was full. Mrs. Whitmore placed candles in a circle around the mirror. Elijah stood inside the ring, holding Clara's diary. You must say her name, the old woman said. 3 times. And promise to trade something dear. What do I trade? Your voice. Your memory. Your blood. The mirror will choose. Elijah nodded. Then he said her name. Clara. 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 The mirror shimmered. Wind howled through the trees. The candle flames turned blue. The ground beneath the mirror cracked open. A light burst from the glass. And Elijah disappeared. Inside the mirror world, Clara was trapped in a hallway made of broken glass. Every step cut her feet, but she kept walking. She heard voices. Her mother's lullaby, her father's warnings, Genevieve's screams. Then, she heard Elijah's voice. Clara, I'm here. She ran toward it. The glass tore at her skin. Blood marked her path. She saw him, Elijah, standing at the end of the hallway, arms outstretched. But between them stood the woman in green. You will not take her, the woman said. Elijah stepped forward. Take me instead. The woman laughed. You are not of the blood. You cannot hold me. Elijah raised the diary. But I know your name. Genevieve wrote it. The true name. He opened the book. The mirror woman screamed. Clara rushed forward and grabbed Elijah's hand. The hallway shattered. The next morning, Clara woke in her bed. Her hands were scratched. Her feet sore. But she was safe. The mirror was gone. Elijah stood by the window, looking at the sunrise. He turned to her and smiled. You're back, he said. Clara nodded. But she's not gone. He held up the diary. Then we find out everything. And we finish it. Outside, the garden was quiet. But far beneath the roses, deep in the earth, something moved. And the mirror waited. End of part 5. Next. Part 6, The Garden of Names. Shall I continue with part 6? Rosewood Manor. Part 6. The Secret in the Well. 1863, Tennessee 1000 words, simple English. Clara woke up on cold stone. Her dress was soaked with mud. Her arms and legs ached. She sat up slowly, coughing. She was in a dark place, underground. The walls were made of stone and covered in moss. A soft trickle of water echoed nearby. There was no light, except for a faint blue glow coming from behind her. She turned. The mirror. It stood upright, resting against a wall, glowing softly like moonlight underwater. Clara stood up, her knees shaking. The mirror's surface rippled like water. Then a voice echoed from inside. Clara, come closer. It was her great-grandmother Genevieve's voice. Gentle, calm, but cold. Clara stepped closer. The mirror showed images, flashes from the past. A young woman in a dark green dress standing by the rosewood garden. Then a man in a preacher's coat holding an open Bible and chanting in a language Clara didn't understand. Then fire. Screams. Then, darkness. Suddenly, the glowing mirror went still again. Clara pressed her hand against it. Cold. What do you want from me? She whispered. From behind her, the sound of chains dragging across stone made her heart stop. She spun around. In the darkness stood a figure. Tall, thin, wearing a wide hat and a long coat. No face. Just blackness where the face should be. It pointed at the far wall. Clara didn't want to move. Her legs wouldn't work. But the mirror behind her whispered. Obey, or be forgotten. Shaking, she walked to the wall. There, half buried in dirt, was a wooden panel. She pulled at it. It creaked open, revealing a small tunnel. A breeze came through it, fresh air. Clara dropped to her knees and crawled. Dash dash dash. She emerged behind the manor, at the edge of the overgrown garden. The moon still hung in the sky. It was still night. She stood up, breathing hard. The mirror was gone. Clara ran toward the house, but something caught her eye. The old stone well at the back of the property. Its lid was off. A soft hum came from it, the same eerie lullaby she had heard before. She walked to the edge and looked down. Water shimmered below. Then she saw a face. Her own, but wrong. Its mouth opened and whispered, I'm still here. Clara stumbled back, heart racing. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. It was Mary, the maid. Miss Clara, thank God, she cried. We thought you vanished. I checked your room, your bed was empty and cold. What happened? Clara couldn't speak. She only stared at the well. Mary followed her eyes. Oh Lord, Mary whispered. No one goes near that well. Your mother told me, bad things live in there. Clara grabbed Mary's hand. We have to seal it. Now. Dash dash dash. Inside the house, they found nails, boards, and a hammer. Clara's hands shook as she worked, sealing the lid over the well. Mary watched, crossing herself. I don't know what you saw, Mary whispered, but I know evil when I feel it. And that well, that's not just water down there. When they finished, the humming stopped. Dash dash dash. Back in the manor, Clara opened the diary again. She flipped to the last page. It read, greater than, she waits in water. She calls to blood, but she fears the fire. Beneath those words was a hand-drawn map. It showed a part of the manor she'd never been in, an old basement, marked with a red X. Mary refused to go with her. So Clara lit a lantern and descended the stairs alone. Dash dash dash. The basement was thick with dust. Spiderwebs hung from every beam. Rats scattered as Clara moved through. She followed the map until she reached a bricked-up wall. The red X was painted there in faded ink. She knocked on it. Hollow. Using a crowbar she found in a nearby storage room, she pried at the bricks. One by one, they fell. Behind them, a dark space opened, another hidden room. She stepped inside. Candles lined the floor, long since melted. A large circle was carved into the stone floor with strange symbols all around it. At the center lay an iron basin, filled with ash. And in the corner, the green dress. Genevieve's. It hung on a hook, perfectly preserved. Clara walked toward it. Behind the dress, hidden in the wall, was a book. Not a diary, a black leather book, thick and locked with chains. Clara picked it up. The moment her fingers touched it, the room grew colder. She heard a scream, not out loud, but in her mind. She dropped the book. It landed open. The page read, greater than, to end her, the blood must burn. The fire must feed. Only then can the gate be closed. Suddenly, the green dress lifted into the air. Invisible hands held it. It floated toward Clara. She ran. Dash dash dash. She found Mary upstairs, sobbing in the kitchen. We have to leave, Mary cried. The mirrors are cracking, every one of them. And I saw her. I saw that pale woman standing behind me in the reflection. Clara nodded. We can't leave yet. I know how to end this. She lit the fireplace and threw the black book into the flames. A scream echoed through the manor. The windows shattered. The ground shook. Mary screamed and covered her ears. Clara stared into the fire. The mirror in the hallway burst into pieces. Then silence. That night, Clara and Mary locked every mirror in the house in a chest and buried them in the garden, far from the well. But as Clara stood over the buried box, she noticed something. The roses. They were blooming again. Blood red. End of part 6. Next. Part 7, Genevieve's return. Shall I continue with part 7? Rosewood Manor. Part 7. The Whispering Walls. 1863, Tennessee 1000 words, easy and simple English. Clara opened her eyes slowly. She was lying on the cold ground inside the manor again. The last thing she remembered was falling into the dirt outside, the mirror humming in her hands. Now, she was back in the old hallway, the same place where she had unlocked the forbidden room. But something was different. The paintings on the walls were all turned around, faces hidden. The grandfather clock had stopped. The air was thick, heavy, and humming softly, just like before. She stood up and noticed mud on her feet. So it wasn't a dream. She had really been in the garden. She had really found the mirror. And now, she had brought something back with her. A soft whisper tickled her ear. Clara. She spun around. No one was there. The sound didn't come from outside, it came from inside the walls. She pressed her ear against the wooden paneling. The voice spoke again, clearer this time. You've seen her now, she's awake. Clara backed away. The diary. She needed to check Genevieve's diary again. Maybe it had answers. She ran to her room and pulled it from under her pillow. The pages had changed. The ink had bled. New words had appeared, ones she hadn't read before. Greater than, she speaks through the house now. The walls know her. The mirror broke the seal. I tried to leave. The trees moved. The path vanished. I am not the first. I will not be the last. Clara's hands trembled. She looked at her window. Could she escape? She grabbed her shawl, opened the window, and climbed down using the vines growing up the side of the house. She ran toward the road. But when she reached the edge of the property, her feet stopped. The path was gone. The same gravel road that led to town had disappeared. In its place was a foggy field, thick, white mist stretched in all directions. No end in sight. Behind her, the house stood still. Watching. She turned around and walked back slowly. As she reached the front door, it opened on its own. Clara stepped inside. A chill moved through her bones. The candles had gone out. All of them. The walls began to whisper again. Find the others. What others? She asked aloud. No reply. Just soft laughter. She wandered into the west wing of the manor, a part she rarely entered. Most of it had been closed off since her father's time. Cobwebs clung to the doorframes. Furniture was covered with white sheets. Then she saw something odd. A door that wasn't there before. It was small, barely tall enough to walk through, and painted red. She reached for the handle. Cold, almost frozen. She opened it slowly. Inside was a room full of mirrors. Dozens of them. Small hand mirrors. Tall standing mirrors. Broken ones. Fogged ones. Some were covered with cloth, others fully exposed. And in each reflection, she didn't see herself. She saw other girls, each one in old-fashioned dresses. Some crying, some screaming silently, some staring with empty eyes. Clara gasped and stumbled backward. The largest mirror in the center began to glow. And a voice came, not a whisper this time, but clear and sharp. You opened the door, now set us free. She stepped forward, her breath shaking. Who are you? A pale girl stepped into view in the mirror. Her hair was long and wet. Her face bruised. I am Eleanor, she said softly. I lived here in 1798. Genevieve tried to help us. She failed. More faces appeared behind her. Girls from different years. Some looked young, some older. All trapped. Where are you? Clara whispered. In the house, Eleanor replied. In the walls. In the mirrors. In the floors. We cannot leave. Why? Because of her. She feeds on secrets. On pain. We were never meant to live. Only to serve her. Clara's stomach turned. Who is she? The girls all said the name together. The mirror woman. She's part of your blood, Eleanor said. But you're different. You resisted. That's why she fears you. Clara stepped closer. What do I do? Eleanor raised a finger and pointed behind her. Clara turned around. There, on the wall, was a strange symbol. A circle with a line through it and small runes around the edge. It looked like it had been carved long ago. That's the seal, Eleanor said. Break it, and her hold on this house will weaken. But what if she fights back? Clara asked. She will. Clara didn't wait. She reached for the iron fire poker on the ground and swung it at the symbol with all her strength. The wood cracked. A loud scream echoed through the manor. Not from a person, but from the house itself. The lights burst. The walls shook. The mirrors shattered. Clara dropped the poker and ran as glass flew through the air. But in the shards, she saw something new. The girls were gone. Free. All except one. Genevieve. She stood in the last mirror, smiling faintly. You broke the seal, she whispered. But the root remains. What root? Clara cried. Genevieve didn't answer. The mirror turned black. Clara stood in silence. Blood trickled from a cut on her hand. The house had gone quiet. Too quiet. She picked up the diary again and saw a new line had appeared. Greater than, one root remains. Buried deep. In blood. In name. Clara closed the book. Her heart was pounding. She knew now what she had to do. The house could still be saved. But only if she found the root of the curse. And destroyed it. End of part 7. Next. Part 8. The root beneath the house. Shall I continue with part 8? Rosewood Manor. Part 8. Beneath the Ashes. 1863, Tennessee 1000 words, easy and simple English. The fire had died by morning, but the smell of smoke still filled the halls of Rosewood Manor. Ashes floated in the air like snow. Silence spread across the estate, broken only by the crackling of burned wood. Clara lay on the floor of the study. Her dress was singed, her hands covered in black soot. She sat up slowly, coughing. Around her, the room was destroyed, books burned, curtains torn, and her father's portrait half melted. But the mirror was untouched. It stood in the corner, perfectly clean, its black glass gleaming. Clara stared at it, remembering what she had seen the night before, her family, trapped behind the glass, eyes wide with silent screams. Her great-grandmother Genevieve had told her, the curse is not just inside the house. It's inside the blood. Clara rose, shakily to her feet. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the small silver key, the same one that had opened the forbidden room. But now, it felt warmer, like it had absorbed the fire itself. She walked to the library. It was the only room untouched by the flames. Inside, she found the old map of the manor. Her fingers traced the paper. There, beneath the west wing. A tunnel. A passage that led underground. She followed the hallway toward the west wing. The walls here were covered in old paintings, their faces dark with time. One painting had been sliced down the middle. Another had a black handprint on the canvas. Clara reached the base of the staircase. There, hidden behind a broken cabinet, she found the trapdoor. The silver key fit perfectly. Creak. She pulled it open and stepped into the darkness. The stairs groaned under her weight as she descended. The air was damp and cold. Her candle flickered with each step. At the bottom, the tunnel stretched forward, lined with old stone. She walked for what felt like hours. The silence was thick. Then, footsteps. She froze. The sound echoed behind her. Slow, heavy, too far apart to be human. She turned around. No one. She kept walking. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a round chamber. In the center stood a stone pedestal, and on it, another mirror. This one was smaller, cracked, and surrounded by ashes. Clara stepped forward. The ashes were deep, piled high around the base. She brushed them away, revealing bones. Dozens of bones. Some small, like children's. She gasped. A name was carved into the pedestal. Catherine Ashcroft 1813. Another name. And another. And another. All Ashcrofts. Her family had buried their dead down here. No, not buried, trapped. Clara looked into the cracked mirror. A girl's face stared back. But she wasn't Clara. The girl opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came. Only the soft hum again, rising from the ground. Clara stepped back. From the shadows, something moved. A figure stepped forward. A woman in a burned green dress, her face half charred, eyes white as bone. Genevieve, you brought the fire, the ghost whispered. I didn't mean to, Clara said, trembling. Genevieve raised a hand. You woke the house. Now it remembers. The walls shook. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The bones began to rattle. You must end it, Genevieve said. The mirror must be broken. Clara looked at the small mirror. Why me? Because you're the last. Suddenly, the mirror lit up. A face appeared, her mother. Trapped inside, pounding on the glass. No, Clara screamed. She grabbed a heavy stone from the ground and raised it high. Break it, Genevieve shouted. Clara brought the stone down with all her strength. Crack, the mirror shattered. The ground roared. Light burst from the pedestal, blinding her. Then, silence. Dash dash dash. When Clara woke, she was lying outside in the garden. The sun was rising. The house stood behind her, quiet and still. No smoke, no screams. She stood up slowly. The flowers were blooming again. The mirror was gone, and so was the curse. Dash dash dash. End of part 8. Next. Part 9. What the house remembers. Shall I continue with part 9? Rosewood Manor. Part 9. What the house remembers. 1863, Tennessee 1000 words, easy and simple English. Dash dash dash. Clara stood in the garden, staring at Rosewood Manor. The house looked peaceful now, almost too peaceful. The windows were clean, the black ivy had vanished, and the birds were singing again. For the first time in weeks, it felt like morning. But Clara couldn't relax. The fire, the mirror, the bones beneath the house, it all haunted her. Was it really over? She stepped toward the house again. Her feet crunched over burnt leaves and ash. The front door creaked open by itself. Inside, everything looked new. The walls were repainted. The furniture was polished. Even the portraits looked different. Her father's painting smiled down at her now. She stepped into the library. Her mother stood by the window. Clara froze. Mama. Her mother turned slowly. Her eyes were soft, warm, and tearful. Clara, my sweet girl. Clara ran to her and hugged her tightly. I thought I lost you. You saved us, her mother whispered. You broke the curse. But, how are you here? I don't know, her mother said. One moment, I was lost. Then I saw your face in the light. Clara stepped back, confused. Where's father? And James? They're upstairs, resting. The house let them go. Let them go. The words felt strange. Clara walked up the staircase carefully. The hallway was full of golden light. She found James asleep in his bed, clutching his toy horse. Her father sat by the window, watching the trees sway. It's like waking from a long nightmare, he said gently. Downstairs, her mother hummed a lullaby Clara hadn't heard since childhood. It felt wrong, too perfect. Clara looked at the hallway mirror. Her reflection didn't match. The girl in the glass was smiling. Clara was not. Dash dash dash. That night, the wind picked up again. The fire in the hearth flickered blue. Clara sat in the library, reading the old journal she had taken from Genevieve's room. It had survived the fire. The pages told of past Ashcrofts who had tried to escape the house, none had succeeded. The mirror was only part of the curse. The real evil, Genevieve wrote, lived inside the house itself. She flipped to the final page. One sentence was scrawled in red ink. What the house gives, it can take back. Clara's hands began to tremble. She ran to the front door. It wouldn't open. She tried the windows. They were sealed tight. Mama, she called. No answer. Papa, silence. She turned, and the hallway was dark. Not nighttime dark, but shadow dark. The air turned cold. The paintings began to weep blood. Clara screamed. A voice echoed through the manor, soft and low. You thought you ended it. But I only sleep when I choose. The house was alive, and it remembered. Clara ran to the attic. She remembered the blue book she had once seen hidden under the floorboards. She pulled them up, dust flying everywhere. There it was, a leather-bound journal with the name, Margaret Ashcroft 1764, written in gold. She opened it. Margaret had been the first woman to live in Rosewood. She wrote about the binding ritual, a blood pact to protect the Ashcroft family in exchange for eternal presence. Eternal presence, not protection, possession. Margaret had made a deal. In return for wealth, beauty, and long life, the house would never truly let the family die. Their spirits would stay inside, forever. The mirror had only trapped the ones who resisted. The rest had become part of the walls. Clara closed the book. She understood now. The house had given her family back, but only as illusions. Ghosts. She ran downstairs. Her mother stood in the kitchen, humming. Who are you really? Clara asked. Her mother turned slowly. Her eyes were empty. I'm what you wanted. Clara backed away. The walls began to close in. The lights flickered. The fire turned black. She raced back to the secret tunnel, hoping to find Genevieve's spirit again. Maybe she would know what to do. The trapdoor was sealed. She screamed in frustration. Then, she remembered the key. It was still in her coat pocket. She pulled it out and twisted it hard. Click. The door opened. She ran down the stone steps, deeper and deeper, until she reached the chamber. This time, it was empty. No bones. No mirror. Only a stone wall. She fell to her knees. Help me, she cried. From the shadows, Genevieve's voice whispered. Finish what I couldn't. Clara looked up. A message had appeared on the wall, scratched in fire. Burn the heart of the house. Clara didn't understand at first. But then it hit her. The library. That's where it all began. That's where the first blood was spilled. Clara raced back up, carrying a lantern and matches. She poured lamp oil across the floor, the shelves, the desk, and the books. Her hands shook. The house whispered, begging her to stop. You'll lose everything, it hissed. Clara lit a match. I've already lost it all. She dropped the flame. The room exploded with fire. Screams echoed through the walls, men, women, children, all the trapped souls. The house roared and shook. Clara backed away as flames chased her to the front door. This time, it opened. She stepped outside just as the house collapsed behind her in a storm of black smoke and red fire. Rosewood Manor was gone. Only ashes remained. But the curse had finally been burned with the house's heart. Clara stood in the morning light, breathing deeply. Free, at last. End of part 9. Next. Part 10, The Last Ashcroft. Would you like me to continue with part 10, the final part? Rosewood Manor. Part 10. The Last Door. 1863, Tennessee, final part, 1,000 words, easy and simple English. The sun rose high above Rosewood Manor, painting the old bricks with warm gold. For the first time in many years, the air around the estate felt calm. No whispers, no shadows, no fear. Clara stood at the edge of the garden, her hands stained with ash. She had broken the mirror. She had faced the spirits. The curse was gone, or so she hoped. But something still didn't feel right. Inside the house, the halls were quiet. Too quiet. Paintings no longer followed her with their eyes. The piano in the drawing room stood still. Even the scent of roses, once rotten, now smelled sweet. And yet, the silence felt like a breath held too long. She returned to the study, now repaired by time or something else. The books were back on their shelves. The portrait of her father no longer looked angry, but peaceful. Clara sat at the desk and opened her great-grandmother's diary once more. There was one final page she hadn't noticed before. The ink was faded, the words written in shaky hand. The curse ends not with breaking the mirror, but with choosing to leave the door unopened. A cold chill ran down Clara's back. She remembered something, the one room in Rosewood she had never entered. At the top of the house. The attic. The staircase creaked as she climbed. Dust floated in the light from the circular window above. She had passed this door many times as a child. Her mother had said, "That room is always locked, my love. Never go near it." Now, she stood before it. But the door was already open. Inside, the attic was filled with old furniture covered in white cloth. Broken dolls, cracked mirrors, wooden trunks. In the center of the room stood a single rocking chair, slowly moving back and forth. No wind, no sound, just movement. Clara stepped closer. A diary lay on the chair. She picked it up and read the name. Isabel Ashcroft, 1792. The first daughter of the manor. Clara opened it. The pages were full of drawings, children's faces with hollow eyes, a tree growing from a girl's chest, and a door. Always the same door. She flipped to the last page. I opened the door in my dream. But when I woke, the door was inside me. Suddenly, Clara heard a soft voice. Clara. She turned. There, in the corner, stood a child. Pale skin, black eyes, wearing a white dress. "Do you remember me?" the girl whispered. Clara shook her head. "Who are you?" "I'm the one your blood forgot. The one left behind. I never left this house. I am its memory." The walls of the attic began to twist. The shadows moved like water. The light from the window turned black. "You were supposed to forget," the girl said, stepping forward. "But you saw too much." Clara's hand tightened around the diary. "You're not real." "I'm real enough to keep the door open." Behind the girl, a black door appeared. It pulsed like a heartbeat. "If you walk through, you'll forget everything," the girl said softly. "No more nightmares. No more pain. Just peace." Clara looked at the door, then back at the girl. And then she smiled. "No," she said. "I've faced the house. I've faced the fire. I remember my family, and I won't forget. Not now. Not ever." She threw the diary into the black door. The moment it passed through, the door cracked. The girl screamed. Light burst from the attic walls. The shadows hissed and vanished. The rocking chair broke into pieces. And the door, it burned until there was nothing left. Clara opened her eyes. She was lying in her own bed. Sunlight came through the window. Downstairs, someone was humming. A warm, living sound. She ran down the stairs. In the kitchen, her mother stood by the stove. Her father was setting the table. Her younger sister laughed as the cat chased a ribbon on the floor. Clara stood frozen. "Come, Clara," her mother said. "Breakfast is ready." The house was alive again. But this time, with love. The end. Clapperboard. If you enjoyed Rosewood Manor, don't forget to check mark subscribe for more thrilling stories. Thumbs up like if you felt the chills. Loudspeaker share with fellow horror lovers. Speech balloon comment below. What do you think really lived behind the mirror? Thank you for joining the journey into darkness. More haunted tales are coming soon. Candle Skull.